leader is one who knows the way, shows the way, and goes the way. These are the words of noted author and speaker John Maxwell, and rightfully so. Hello and welcome to this very inspiring and exciting episode of the Economic Times Cutting Chai Stories, brought to you by ET The Cutting Chai Stories are a series of heartfelt and candid conversations with industry leaders as they share their remarkable personal and professional journey with us. Through these conversations, we try and understand their values, their beliefs, and what makes them the true blue leaders that they are. We also try and understand what they like to do when they are not in work mode. All this and more over a cup of cutting chai, or given the cold winters, let's make that a piping hot cup of cutting chai. I'm your host Deipti Dewan, and today we have with us a very special guest. He is on a mission to make crypto more accessible. He's a lover of technology with a serious passion for building path-breaking tech products. I'm talking about Mr. Vivek Gupta, EVP and Head, Engineering, Coin DCX. A warm welcome, Mr. Gupta.
Thank you, Deepti. It's good to be here. I look forward to having an interesting conversation with you.
Absolutely. So, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. Sir, kindly take us through your professional journey. You have been associated with many companies, with InstaMojo, with Vistaprint, etc., and other companies as a consultant. So, any career highlights that you would like to share with us?
Sure, Deepti. Been a long career for me. I've been spanning over like 20 years in my career. Right out of college, I worked for a software company. Then I went on to set up a software services company of my own, outsourcing software services to companies in US, UK, and a couple of other countries. It scaled well initially, but then I did not really eventually do so well. I then decided to kind of move on from there. But that entrepreneurial bug had kind of stung, so essentially that stayed with me. I kind of tried to work with startups my entire career. I love working for startups. And as you rightly pointed out in my more recent assignment, I was heading technology at Vistaprint India first, which is kind of a global leader in mass customization, and then was at InstaMojo, which is a payment gateway, and most recently at Coin DCX. In terms of industries, I've actually worked across a lot of industries. I've worked in, art, I've worked in commerce, mobile, gaming, and a lot of other industries, primarily in three sectors: fintech, commerce, e-commerce mainly, and SaaS-based companies. Also, in terms of roles, I've actually worked across multiple different roles. I have worked in software engineering. I have worked in product management. I have also worked in growth, right? So I'll say in a nutshell, it's mostly about working across a lot of industries and executing a lot of different roles. For me, I've always tried to put myself out of my comfort zone in front of challenges that I have actually not faced in my previous work, and that has actually helped me sort of I actually firmly believe that the only way you can actually evolve in your professional journey is by encountering new sort of challenges and overcoming new sort of challenges. That sort of is in a nutshell my journey so far. Fun, exciting at all times, but yeah, that's...
Absolutely, it sounds like it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Vivek, you may have had some highs and lows in your career. We all do, right? So please tell our viewers, how do you handle those times? What is your attitude when you achieve success, for example? And also share with us, what do you do when you're not feeling very positive or upbeat?
Okay. See, when it comes to lows, the one of the moments that I can recollect is my experience of trying to get into the services selection board, right? So essentially, while I was trying to just before college, I was always wanting to get into services. I wanted to get into Air Force. Went ahead with NDA as an entrance, got clearance, and then I went into AFSP. Couldn't get through AFSP. That was sort of a very disheartening moment, because for all my time at that point in time, till that point in time, I was always thinking about trying to get into services, trying to basically be in the Air Force. I had not really given any other entrances, nothing. I just wanted to get into, NDA. But that experience, overall that experience was, quite enriching. I mean, basically the 3-4 days that I spent there, working with people, going through some of those group exercises, etc. It was basically a lot of experiences and a journey that sort of had stayed with me, has had a lot of influence on some of the other, shaping up my views and how I handle life and situations, etc. So even subsequently, the way I try to look at situations whenever there is, any sort of low moments, is to try and get some learnings from it, right? Either whenever you're attempting to do something, either you succeed or you get some learnings from it, learnings which then form the basis for you to then subsequently succeed in your career. And obviously, the silver lining on this was it is during that period, between my NDA and then subsequent graduation, that I actually picked up computers more closely. I fell in love with computers. While I was waiting for my SSB to happen between NDA and SSB, that is the time when I actually started programming for the first time. And I just know it that irrespective of whether I get into NDA or not, this is something that I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. In terms of highs, fortunately, I can think of a lot of things, not any one particular moment, but I would like to talk about my journey at Coin DCX. I mean, basically my most recent journey here at Coin DCX. I think this has been like one of the most fulfilling experiences for me, right? Starting up, launching of this product, scaling it, we're basically growing across all the metrics. Everything is we've basically grown 52x in terms of our user base, the feedbacks that we keep receiving from our users. In fact, I remember one of these incidents, I was meeting somebody for the first time. We shook hands and I'm like, what do you do? And he said he's into real estate. And he asked me, what do I do? And I was like, I work for a crypto startup, crypto being such a new thing. I work for crypto startup. And the guy is like, oh, like Coin DCX. I'm like, yeah, exactly, Coin DCX. And then we sat up and for 10-15 minutes, we're not talking about real estate. We're not talking about the other subject matters. We ended up actually talking about crypto, how it is going to change some of the financial systems and what he knows about crypto. So very, very exciting. And so more than anything else, the fulfilling part in this journey is not just the product that we are making, but also the fact that in whatever capacity, and I'm a firm believer, this to be the case, that fundamentally Web 3.0 will make fundamental changes to the way this technology will make fundamental changes to the way people have a life. And through Coin DCX and whatever limited capacity, it is very fulfilling to make some difference and have some impact in bringing about this change. So yeah, a series of moments, I will say, during this entire journey, but this journey would be something that is very fulfilling for me.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And some great pointers there, especially the bit about learning from whatever you're going through. And thank you so much for sharing that. Vivek, let's talk about leadership. It's a big word, but what does leadership mean to you? And according to you, what are the traits of a good leader?
Wow, that's like a very wide question, honestly, Deepti. Um, See, there is to me, one of the most important thing about leadership, and this is very personal to how I think about leadership. The most important thing about leadership is about enabling your team, right? I mean, it's basically about creating an ecosystem for your team so that they can grow, they can succeed, and they have an understanding of what success means for the entire group. Right? So when you're basically leading a team, there is an entire group of people who are trying to achieve one common objective. It's very important that everybody in the team actually understands what it means to succeed and how they can actually have clarity about that, and then creating an ecosystem for them to be able to deliver on that. In so many ways, I think that's like the first thing that's very, very important from a leadership point of view. Basically, hire the right people, put them in the right place, get out of their way, and then create an ecosystem from where they can basically succeed, right? Um, that sort of is number one, I think. The number two for me would probably be, and this is again how I look at leadership, would be empathy. Right? It's very, very important for you to understand people. And one very important thing we need to know is that people are complex beings, right? I mean, basically all of us, whether it's me or anybody, there is no one single stroke to how we think, how we evaluate things, and how we look at things. And so it's very, very important to look at people from that point of view. I mean, there can be management principles in terms of how you can deal with people, learnings and experiences from other people that you can take. But you should never forget the fact that every individual is individual. And it's very, very important for you to treat individuals as individuals and then work with them from there, right? And lastly, I would say leadership is about basically leading by example, right? So you're not basically somebody who's sitting on the sidelines. You're not a teacher to them. You're not a professor to them. You're not a faculty to them. You're not giving them gyan, sitting on the corners and asking them to do things, right? You're basically somebody who is right in the front, who is doing the way, who is doing the things, and then basically demonstrating that experience. Right? So if you're expecting your team to learn new things, then the question that you need to ask is, am I learning new things? If you're expecting your team to grow, then the question that needs to ask, am I growing? And then am I putting in effort to try and evolve and grow as an individual? So it's very, very important that you always lead your team by example. And that is where, you can have a lot of roles as a leader. You can be a mentor, you can be a lot of other things, but none of those roles in fully encapsulate what you're required to do for your team as a leader, except the fact that you're supposed to lead as an example. And I think
Right.
that's largely what I would cover as leadership.
Right. So you helped us reiterate the line, a leader is someone who knows the way and shows the way, as John Maxwell said, also goes the way.
Also,
So thank you so much. You do lead by example, and what better way than to lead your team? But Vivek, tell us, this skill, did it come to you naturally, being a leader, or did you have to pick up some skills on the way, as you grew up in the scheme of things in the corporate world?
I honestly have never evaluated it that way. Deepti, I mean, honestly, it's not like I actually thought of, Acha, this is the moment now I have become a good leader and I know how to lead people, right? I mean, I had to do that very early in my career. I basically started up my first software services company very early on. Built that team, grew that team from 1 to 80 people, starting from my home where I was the only person. And I had to bring on people, mentor them, lead them as we grew and scaled. However, I would say that a lot of people that I have worked with in the past, some excellent leaders, looking at the way they treated their people, the way they managed and handled situations, navigated different situations, has played a very important role in my life. I would like to imagine, directly or indirectly, that has had an influence. Also, looking at some of the people who may not necessarily be sitting down talking to you, mentoring you one-on-one in person, but people who you watch from a distance, right? And you're actually looking at them, who may actually inspire you in some ways. Maybe that has had some influence. But I would say that it's a journey, right? It's something that you're learning every day. And we always talk about mentor-mentee sort of a relationship. I always say mentors actually learn a lot from their mentees, right? The whole experience of basically leading your team, working with them, you're actually learning back from them a lot of things, right? And it's very important, especially in technology and engineering, to have that sort of an open mind, because the technology evolves very fast. So it's very, very important that you continue to evolve with it.
Right. And indeed, that was going to be my next question. Some of us look up to certain leaders. We have some role models that we look up to, or some mentors we turn to guidance for. Do you have any role models or any mentors?
Could I basically highlight somebody in particular? So, see, I basically believe that it's very important for you to have, a group of people that you can actually brainstorm your ideas with. Have a back and forth conversation with people. And honestly, I have been very lucky that I have worked with very smart people all through my professional career. Working with such smart people. In fact, at every job that I have had one go-to person. Whenever I would basically want to get a different view on how to navigate situation, sit down with them, talk to them for just 5 minutes. It's not necessarily that they are clearing up the situation for me, but just getting, receiving that different perspective on how they are looking at things, or an alternative perspective how they are looking at things, has been helpful, and that has been the case with me, luckily, with every job that I've been a part of. Then I can think of, going back a little bit in my life, I would basically say that would be my father. He would come back from work almost every evening. We would sit down, sometimes working on, he was an engineer himself, so we would sit down and work on some proof of concept projects, some, model projects, etc., that he would be doing at home. We spend some 10-15 minutes chatting and talking. And some of those conversations have had a lot of influence on me and how I look at things. One of the things that really comes to my mind at this moment is My dad would always say, don't be on the fence when it comes to making decisions, right? So make a decision and own up the consequence. Don't worry about getting it right? So own up to the consequences of your decision and go ahead and make the decision. Don't sit on the fence. Don't be on the other side of it. Bachpan mein, I mean, how much would you understand as a child? It's basically, it's about basically evaluating options, pros and cons in my head, always like that. But over a period of time, it basically helped me form a decision-making framework in my life, right? So essentially, what I now like to call as risk-aware decisions, right? I mean, basically, don't make decisions to avoid risks. Make decisions to achieve the outcome that you want to achieve. Be aware of the risks that you need to make and work towards mitigating those risks rather than avoiding it, and be confident that you will be able to handle, or be sure that you are willing to handle the consequences of whatever those decisions are. So very small conversations, very light conversations, not like he's sitting down and giving me some sort of gyan, but some things, small conversations, which eventually helped me shape up a lot of subsequent thinking. And some, like I said, you actually would be watching from a distance, more like people who would inspire you, rather than people who are you are sitting down and having conversations. One of them would probably be Dr. Abdul Kalam, right? My dad worked very closely with him. He was an engineer in DRDO, very young at that time, walking around in the colony. We didn't really have a lot of chat with him. I was very young, but watching him from distance, the man, the kind of achievements that he had done, the sort of things that he had delivered on, and yet he was like one of the simplest, humblest man that I have ever sort of come across, and so that is sort of a learning that remained with me. It doesn't matter what you're able to do in your life, what you're succeeding, you're not succeeding, etc. It's very important to not let anything get ahead of you. It's important to remain focused on what you want to work on, and that sort of humility, simplicity, and focus is something that I carry with me, coming from that man.
Wow. Well, certainly a lot of takeaways there for our viewers. You spoke about humility, you spoke about having your focus right. And one of the most important things, you spoke about the decision making ability of a leader and to stand by those decisions. So, some very key pointers there. I'm sure our audience is going to love these insights. Well, moving on, Vivek, we wanted to know, how have you invested in yourself to keep improving your skills? Technology is always changing,
Yes.
things around us are constantly changing given the media and so many different changes every day. How do you keep up with the latest changes, and how do you keep improving your skills?
Rightly said, Deepti. Honestly, technology moves very fast. It's an evolving space. I think it becomes even more important in crypto. Crypto is like breaking every hour. If technology breaks every day, crypto is like breaking every hour, right? So the rapid pace of innovation that is happening in the crypto technology space and technology in general, it becomes very, very important for everybody to remain abreast. If not, you will be left. You'll absolutely be left behind by technology, right? I mean, if you do not keep pace, then that's it. Um, for me personally, I have found, I learn the best by doing, right? So like I said, I think in my first response to you as well, I like to put myself in situations in front of challenges that I have not handled previously. It is by handling those challenges, coming through those challenges, that helps me learn a lot. I mean, basically that has been sort of the kind of most important bane, right? It's like the backbone of how I would like to imagine that I have been evolving my career. Um, the second thing I think is very important for people to learn and evolve is to be good listeners, keep your ears open, right? So like I said, again, very lucky to have worked with some very intelligent, smart people. Just listening to them, working with them, their ideas, their thoughts, it always helps you evolve. And just not within your company, right? I mean, basically in friends and family, very smart people. Keep your ears open, keep your mind open, and you will be able to absorb a lot of ideas that might directly or indirectly, in immediate term, short term, or maybe in the long term, will have some influence on how you're growing and evolving. And finally, a lot of reading, right? It's not like you will be able to be surrounded by everybody who is smart in the world, right? So, but they're writing text, they're writing content, they're writing things everywhere. I love reading content on engineering. And more recently, I love reading content on crypto. I can talk about crypto as much as it takes. And so that's been one of the areas which has sort of helped evolve over a period of time.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Vivek, we would like to know, what is the best advice anybody has given you? What is the best professional advice that you think of anyone has ever given to you?
So the best advice I would say that I have received is to basically, go ahead and take a call, right? And basically go ahead and make whatever decisions you want to make and keep moving in life. Essentially to not circle back onto things, right? And essentially evaluate, learn, and move, right? Like I said, a couple of low points in life, it becomes very easy for you to get into a state where you think of, those failures as failures rather than learnings, right? But when you start looking at failures as learning, then learnings basically become the stepping stone. It's not like you're going to get into something because you want to draw learnings from it, because you want to get into it because you want to achieve the end goal and objective. But if that can't be achieved, even then it basically prepares you for the future. And so basically to be, courageous when it comes to making decision making framework, and to enable that sort of decisioning along with your team, right? Because a team is like a single unit, right? It always moves in one direction. If some of the people are sort of moving in another direction, then the net negative comes into the play, right? So have that attitude, and foster that attitude, right? I think that's something that I have learned, and through multiple explorations and discussions with the people who have influenced it.
Absolutely. Indeed, some sound advice there. And Vivek, before we move on to our next section, please tell our viewers, how do you maintain the work-life balance? Especially now after COVID, a lot of people are working from home, sometimes 15 hours a day or more.
Hmm.
So in that case, in that scenario, how do you maintain, the work-life balance?
So one of the things is that I love working, honestly. One of the most important things that I like to do, it actually, in many ways, programming relaxes me, right? So if there is a lot of stress that is happening, I pick up one of my side projects, start writing lines of code, and write lines of code. And when that generates the output, it's actually quite relaxing. But more specifically, for these balances, I like to have some me time with me, right? Essentially, have some relaxing time, some turn down time, where I can do whatever I want to do or not do whatever I want to do, cut myself off from everything else. That actually helps. I kind of meditate every morning for a few minutes, and I like to travel. I love to travel, right? So I take breaks whenever it's necessary. I take breaks. I go on those travels. Um, Sometimes I'm working even when I'm traveling, but most of the other times I love traveling, and I generally cut off myself from everything else and focus on that. So yeah, I mean, basically take me time and do some of the things that I love to do. One of which is programming. The other is obviously traveling.
Wow, great there. And yours is a story of passion, truly, because, like you said, your work itself de stresses you and makes you very happy. So that's a great story there. And thank you, Vivek, for sharing those very valuable life lessons. And thank you for sharing with us, with our viewers, your very, very interesting and inspiring story. You truly are an example of a great, strong, powerful leader. And it was a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I'm sure our viewers have had a lot of takeaways in this candid chat. And thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on Cutting Chai Stories, where we bring to you unique and engaging story every single time, because we believe that the best way in which we can learn is through the stories that we share with each other. Keep watching the Economic Times Cutting Chai Stories.